And welcome back to STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest, Justin Goodbread. Before I say another thing, dude, you got the coolest name ever. I mean, that's who doesn't want that name? That's such an awesome name. So that alone, I'm excited because I got Justin Goodbread on my show, which is awesome. But as we always do, Justin, no one knows you better than you. So I'm going to let you bring us up to speed. Little backstory. You got a great one. Kind of bring us up to where we're at today, and we'll get into our discussion.
Sure. So I'll always say, Richard, I'm just a country boy born and raised on the dirt road in South Georgia. That's who I am. Grew up chasing alligators, running with the mud between my toes, and grew up in a little small town, humble beginnings. Mom and dad were just blue collar workers, and they decided they were going to teach their children how to be entrepreneurs. And at the age of 15, I started my first business. They grew. In fact, my brother and I made more income each than my mom and dad did combined while we were in our teens. It was pretty amazing. Just cutting grass, man, and getting out there working hard like so many entrepreneurs did in their startup. And sold that company, moved to East Tennessee after marrying my wife, and since then have started and sold a total of 7 companies. Had my 8th company that I bought into. We worked it to an exit. It's going to be 9-figure exit. So I've had 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure exits in my career, different areas of the world, different industries. And man, it's just amazing to be able to talk to business owners and folks like yourself who drive business owners to success.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really good. 6, 7, 8, 9. I like that trajectory. That's a good way to go for exits. That's really good. So that's awesome. But yeah, it's amazing that your parents, was it like, hey, the easiest way for you to make money is to go cut grass, which for me it was, right? I'm in a whole landscape business, but what made them think about entrepreneurship other than go get a job working somewhere? Was there's no jobs available, so it's easier to do that, or what was their insight?
No, they were introduced to a company by the name of Amway way back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Amway was way back in the 80s. It was a multi-level marketing company, and they were introduced to Zig Ziglar and Les Brown, these motivational people who talked about you can do anything that you desire to do if you just put your mind to it. My mama used to say, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Well, they didn't have that type of talking. They didn't have that voice, that motivation, that belief system in themselves from their family. They were just raised, just country, simple folk. And my dad one time, like most dads, he said, I want better for my children than I do for myself. It often has been said, your father is the only man that you'll ever meet that wants you to out succeed them. And that's what he did. He realized that, he could barely get out of high school. I'm not knocking him. He was a great man. He is my hero. He's been gone now about almost 10 years, and he could barely read or write, dude. Richard, he would sit in church and the preacher would make a note and he would write. You couldn't read it, but he knew what he was writing down. So just old country boy, smart, just not book educated. And they just said, if a Les Brown with what his story is, and a Zig Ziglar with his story, and this concept of you can achieve anything that you want to achieve, they came out and they said, hey, we want you to be business owners. So at the age of 15, I made $40 in 2 hours cutting grass for Mr. Brown. I remember like it was yesterday. Come home, and my dad said, son, the principle is if you work for the man, as he called it, you'll forever be emboldened and holding to the man. But you just made $40 in 2 hours. You made more than I did working literally an 8-hour job, way back in the day, how much in the 80s, how much people were getting paid. But he's like, you made more than me. And here I am in my 40s working for the Georgia Port Authority. You made more than me. So if you learn to work for yourself, you'll never go without. And that was the principle. And from there, they began reading books and teaching us, driving us to conferences. Mom actually quit working at the hospital as a nurse to come home and teach us how to run a business and do things. And from there, it just flourished. Myself, my brother, my sister, now are all business owners 30 years later, and all of us are uber successful by the world standards because of a little humble beginning of a mom and dad who just wanted to do something different for their family.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I had similar experience, even coming out of the Marine Corps. I'm swinging a pick, $5 an hour, digging trench for cable all day, swinging a pick. Here I'm looking, and then some guy wanted me to do a little side gig for him. I had to move like 35 tons of granite, crushed granite, from the street to the backyard. But he paid me $1,000. And I just went, I was doing this yesterday for 50. And that started the whole journey. It's like, okay, you got to work for yourself. I want to keep all the money. Okay, I want to do that. So I'm totally with you. My parents as well, my dad, we always did some side work all the time. He's a hardworking guy, ran a golf course, but in the beginning it was 3 jobs, work, 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 right? So we have a similar story, just that work ethic. You can do it. And he's like, go do it. Just go do it. And started making things and knocking on doors, selling little seed packets and whatever we did, I was finding golf balls in the golf course pond and selling those for 25 cents, right? So we kind of get it. We get those roots. We understood it. But then when you really get going, for some of us, it becomes misery. Others becomes fun. I hit a little both. Okay. Cause I ended up doing really well, then losing it all. I had to start over again. So I got a good taste of it all, but I love that aspect of your story. And I think it's really encouraging for people. It's not about being a book smart person necessarily. It helps, right? I'm not a college guy. I barely graduated high school. Same thing. I brag about my 1.7 GPA.
I love it.
Million dollar companies, but I could barely graduate high school. So that's all good. But, I love hearing those stories, so, you started basically cutting grass, right? But what was when you said you left Georgia and moved to Tennessee, was that to start a new business? What was that like? What was the impetus to really go to Tennessee?
So my wife is from Tennessee. We met long distance. We dated for almost a year, got married, and she moved down to Georgia. I had a business, I don't remember how many employees at that time, had a little nursery facility. And the company had grown from, just cutting grass, and now we're doing full service irrigation, landscaping on a big scale. So she moved down to South Georgia after we got married. My wife is half Filipino, so her mom's from the Philippines, came over during the nursing shortage just after the Vietnam War. And Emily's dad, my wife's dad, is from here in the mountains of Tennessee, like the mountains, like when you see Appalachia, right? Just coal mining, just backwoods country. And she moved down to Georgia. And, Richard, I saw something I never experienced before. And mom and dad didn't raise us this way, but I saw the ignorance of racism come out against my wife. And we just were never raised to see skin color or the various differences. We were raised, people are people, love them all. And I saw what crushed my wife. Here we are, newlyweds, beautiful girl, and racism crushed her. And I just, in that moment, I'm like, I can go start another company. I'm not going to raise my family and deal with this. And it was ignorance. It wasn't widespread like, even the media oftentimes would say. It was just ignorance in a one particular thing but I watched it crush her. And so I was like, let's change. Let's go back to East Tennessee. Knoxville here in East Tennessee is a melting pot. We have the University of Tennessee here. A very diverse culture. It's still Southern. I mean, we still like our sweet tea and our grits and eggs and stuff like that and pecan pie. But so we moved up here. I was going to start another landscape company. And, in this island in the coast of South Georgia, you have sand you dig in. That's easy to dig a hole. In East Tennessee, it's like you need a pickaxe and an excavator and some dynamite to dig a hole here. So that lasted all about 6 months. And so I found myself in the financial services industry, as the old days was insurance sales, and basically made my headway there. Started making some money in the insurance business. I simultaneously started a consulting business, helping some dentists buy businesses because I'd already sold one. So I knew the process from the seller's perspective. So I helped some dentists buy their own companies and turn their companies into their own businesses and scale them rapidly. One of the things mom and dad taught me, or through the education I had through high school, it wasn't traditional curriculum in the sense I had to learn algebra and things of that nature. It was learn to run a business. And one of the things I learned in business is how to scale companies so that the company could operate as a machine. And as I got out and started looking with business owners, both in the financial world as I was scaling that company and the consulting world, I saw that most business owners didn't understand that their company is no more than a machine that's a sales organization. You're selling a product or a service, and you're delivering upon that product and service. That's simple as it gets. It's a machine. And if you can attract that particular customer that you want to work with and then provide them that level of service to where they become raving fans for you, then it's a machine that actually grows over time in perpetuity. As long as we, the business owner, or the technicians often say, right, whether it's me in my financial world or the insurance or the consulting or my landscaping world, the technician side of me, if I got out of the way and let the machine work, I could see when it wasn't working properly and I could fix the machine. But if I tried to jump in and be the technician, it would break. So, after 10 years of playing business, if you will, I sold those companies. They did well, but I'm like, Richard, if I'm going to create generational wealth, if I'm going to do that dream that my mom and dad had for my brother, my sister, and I, if I'm going to fulfill my 1/3 of that dream, that means that I have to do something different. I have to recreate a machine that can actually scale exponentially, that doesn't need to take a lifetime. So I have this philosophy that actually goes in the face of many business owners, and that is this. Many people think that generational wealth is created over a lifetime. I disagree. I think generational wealth is created in sharp bursts. Sharp bursts. It's not stretched over endless years. It's almost like if generational wealth is not like a slow-growing oak tree, as I would say in the South. It's not a slow-growing oak tree. It's like a lightning strike. Boom. What we have to do as business owners, and what I learned is I spent the previous 20 years of learning scaling businesses and all that muscle memory and all those things, those habits that I had to learn, those heartaches I had to face and those scars I had to face. If I could take all that knowledge now and apply it with intensity as like a lightning strike, then I could take a company from zero to a generational wealth number within a short period of time. Now, there was a process, and there's a formula that every person who scales companies rapidly uses, period. So I found that formula, and with that formula, dude, I took, Richard, a financial services company that is the most regulated firm out there. The SEC regulates the mess out of the financial world. I took that company from zero to an 8-figure exit in 49 months. So I'm going to tell anybody who's listening to this, and you know this, Richard, you and I have already spoke a little bit. If a country boy, born and raised in South Georgia, who ran around barefoot, who was home educated back whenever it wasn't even popular, can grow an 8-figure exit in 49 months, anybody can do it if you just know the formula. And so that's what kind of led to the success over time, was learning the formula. And now I have the privilege of teaching people how to do this. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. That's so awesome. Yeah, I think a big thing you said in there, and I think is really important for any business owner, anyone looking to go into business, is get out of your own way. That was a big thing, because we are always the problem. Okay, it's like I'm telling people, like, no, I'm the problem. You're the problem. He's the problem. The owners are the problem. We're our biggest enemy. We really are.
Yeah, that's actually one of the value drivers that business owners don't realize harms the value. So my formula I use is simple. The very first thing you're going to need to know is, what is the value of your company today? And then what is the value gap? In other words, if I were to compare your company with an exact same industry company that's best in class, I'm talking about the owner and all their team members can get up on stage and teach how they run the company. If I compare yours, exact same revenue, not even a revenue delta, with the best-in-class company, what is that value gap? How much more profitable could your business be if you just improve the internals, or if you improve the systems and turn it into a machine, right? One of those value drivers, one of the key value drivers, is owner dependence. You see, think about it this way, Richard. And this is whenever this hit me. Literally, I was sitting in the West Virginia mountaintops and looking across the vista. It was hunting season. I'm up there with some hillbillies in West Virginia. We're out deer hunting, just having a blast. And my friend of mine said, Justin, I'm broke. I'm 58 years old, I think it was at the time, maybe 55. I'm broke. I've got this business I'm paid for, but if I quit today, I can't live my life I'm used to, and I can't sell this thing. And as he was going through this, I said, oh my goodness, you have owner dependence. So if we look at our companies from an outside buyer's perspective, maybe it's an employee, maybe it's a child who we want to take the business over, maybe it's a third-party investor, strategic buyer. What they want to do is they want to buy a machine that doesn't require the owner to be there. But yet we, the owners, because we're so good at what we do, because I am really good at drafting landscape drawings. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at being able to talk about portfolios. I'm really good at being able to to diagnose an engine, or whatever the trade is that we're working with. Maybe it's HVAC. I can just walk into the house. I know what's wrong with that HVAC unit right away. We're so good at our jobs, and we've overcome so much adversity just being in business, that we know we can do it because of that tenacity and that resilience and that oomph that we have as business owners, that we don't want to let off. Like some of my clients say, Justin, as long as I'm driving that wheel, as long as my hands are on the wheel and I can control it, I'm good. The reality is that very thing that we're good at ends up devastating our net worth. We make a lot of income, but we don't have a business that somebody's willing to come in and shell out some cash and give us premium dollars for. So owner dependence. So I asked the question this way, Richard, and you know this. Can your company, as a business owner, if you're listening to me today, can you walk away from your company for 90 days and go on vacation? Go sit on the beach. I know you won't do it. Maybe go fishing, maybe go hunting, maybe go gardening, maybe take a road trip through Europe for 90 days. Can you do it? And the minute I was asked that, or minute I began asking clients that, I know the feeling. It was like, My company can't survive without me. I am this, 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 and this. And because of that, that interdependence end up destroying our companies. That's just one of the 8 value drivers that we have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing I talk about. I learned that. I spent 20 years in that position. I'm the guy. I'm the artist. I'm this without me. And even though I got people working and everything else, you can grow, but you can't scale. Like you can grow, you can get better, you can make income and you can do things, but you're just in the way. And that mindset is exactly what we teach as well. It's like you've got to that whole 90 days away. Let's start with, can you go 2 weeks? I start really small. It's like without calling in. I said, I'll give you a baby assignment, okay? Go 2 weeks and don't call the office, and then they'll scramble and try to get everything dialed in and lined up, because I did that. Make sure everyone knows what they got to do. They got this job, we're going to do this, and walk them through and spend the extra day telling them what they're going to do for the week. And, it's just, and then you kind of can get by and you're like, well, that didn't really work because if I didn't come back, it's done. They have just enough to do while I'm gone. They don't know what makes the machine work, right? That's the whole point.
The problem with the way that I approached it the first time, the way that you just talked about, and the way that so many business owners think about this is we approach it looking at the hard work. The hard work meaning that, hey, I realize I have the place to spend. Hey, I know I've got to deal with this angry customer. I need to deal with this vendor. I need to deal with this employee problem. That's the hard work. That's not the difficult work. The difficult work is the underlying assets, the underlying structures, the underlying systems that enable you to actually not have to deal with the hard work. So we as business owners, we work hard. We do. I know you do. I've been there for 32 years now. As a business owner, we work very hard. But yet, as the old saying goes, water takes a path of least resistance. We don't do the difficult work that allows us to create that machine. And then if we couch it, not just in let's scale the company, because I say this, Richard, it drives people crazy when I say this, but if you think about these words, it actually will pause you and you'll say, you're right, Justin. A profitable company does not equal a valuable company. Here's the reality. I've seen a lot of companies who are profitable, but they're not valuable because they're centered around that hard work entrepreneur. But I've yet to see a valuable company that's not profitable. There's a difference there in words. If you do the difficult work of, hey, making sure that you address your marketing, you tie it to sales, making sure that your QC's there, and that's just one little thread there. There's 286 threads that run through any company out there that you've got to make sure they're feed properly. If you do the difficult work of that, then what happens is you drive value. You can create that generational wealth that you've been wanting. You can create that freedom that I know you went into business for, right? So I could have more time, so I could take off when I wanted to, so I could afford the things. You create that when you do the difficult work of building value. But if you do the hard work of driving profits, you'll never have that freedom or that generational wealth. And whenever I heard that for the first time, whenever I saw that for the first time, Richard, I can remember exactly where I was sitting. I was like, holy crap. Last 3 companies, they were successful. I mean, I don't know many 20-year-olds that sell 6-figure companies at the age of 21. There's not very many of us. And then now to say how many 40-year-olds have done multiple 7- and 8-figure companies. There's not many of us. But I would never reach that little milestone in my life to create that family generational wealth that I was after my mom and dad trained us for if I didn't take a step back and say, hey, how do I build a machine that can work without me? And then let's go and execute on it. And let's do the difficult work. And it is hard and painful, but it is so rewarding. It is so rewarding. You know this, you see it.
Yeah, it's so critical to understand that. And I like the way you put it, Justin, because the good thing about entrepreneurs, most of them have a great work ethic. Like you're saying, we all can work hard. I'll swing a pickaxe all day. I'll do whatever. I did all this hard stuff. I did not, my first 20 years, do the difficult stuff. Like you're saying, and you think you got all this, and in a day, like kind of literally, it was all gone. For me in '08, and you watch it melt in front of you because you didn't do the difficult work. That's happened to me. And that's what I had to realize after it was all gone. I had to restart, move, lost everything, look back and go, yeah, I guess that was kind of important. Because I just kept ignoring it. I'm just like, well, I'll get to that. I'm too busy being in front.
Well, here's the sad part, Richard. Here's the statistic. Here's my nerd side coming out, okay? Friends, I'm a country boy, but I'm a nerd. I'll admit it. I own that badge. I wear that hat. The nerd side of me says is there's $14 trillion of wealth at stake. Let me break that down. as a business owner, statistically, now you may be a little bit out of the norm, so whoever's listening to me, statistically, 80% of your net worth is tied up in your business, statistically speaking. That's from 3 different independent studies. And the more shocking is right now, there's only about a 20 to 30% chance, depending on some of the new studies that come over, depending on, they're a little bit of convergence there, a little discrepancy, but 20 to 30% chance that you're actually going to sell your company for something, not even for what you think it's worth. That means if there's 14 trillion right now at stake, $14 trillion in small businesses. When I say small, SBA, less than 500 employees, I'm using that scenario. There's $14 trillion in wealth, which means that statistically, you only have a 20 to 30% chance of capturing anything. Now, here's the sad part. According to the Academy of Acquisitions and Mergers Advisors, that's in other words, the advisors who help transition companies from one to another. Those who do transact, in other words, those successful, that small 20 to 30% who actually are able to sell their companies at some point in the future, only 4% of those individuals are happy with the price. Only 4%. So right now, over the next 6 years, there's roughly 11 million business owners that are going to try to sell, mostly baby boomers. Right now, statistically, there's about 67% owned by baby boomers and about 51% owned by my generation, Generation X. And out of that, there's roughly $11 million business owners who are going to try to transact. 1 million will be successful. Out of those 1 million who are successful, 40,000 will be happy with the price. That breaks my heart, Richard. Yeah. That's why I like doing these podcasts, because business owners, like my dad did, like probably anybody who's a dad, you can see this in your mind's eye. He'd grab me by my shoulders and he would shake me and say, son, listen to me, with that intensity and that fervor like you would expect a father to their son, because they want their son to do better. I wanted to be the proverbial father for you, shake you and say, listen to me. Statistically, friend, unless you make decisions today, you are going to be a statistic. You may sell. You may capture that value. You may. But statistically, you're at 4% of those who actually transact that are going to be happy with your exit. And it doesn't have to be that way, Richard, because most business owners, here's the reality. We are going to leave our business either by decision or by circumstance, either by death, disability, divorce, something, or we're going to decide to leave our company. Either we close the door down, or we try to sell it to our family or sell it to a buyer, or we give it to our children or somebody. We're going to leave our company. To me, whenever I discovered this at the age of 30, I'm like, I can, over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I can work on the difficult things and build an asset that somebody, as often say, is willing to come in and pay me serious money for. I'm already working hard. Let me just refocus my attention and do the things that make this thing profitable. Make it to where a buyer, I know how much my company's worth. And whenever I made that change in my own mindset, it put my family in a position that I never dreamt was possible in a very short period of time. And any business owner can do it. Again, if a country boy from South Georgia, born and raised on a dirt road, who's homeschooled, can do this. Anybody can do that.
Yes. And by the way, I homeschooled all 6 of my kids all the way through.
That's awesome.
Or I should say my wife did. I did art and PE. She did the hard stuff, but still.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. But you're so right. And I think what I didn't get either, because working hard, like literal sweat and moving stuff and buildings and welding and doing all the crazy things I did, that to me was so fulfilling, but it was misdirected. That's all you're saying. You're just misdirecting your hard work, because we're going to work hard. And like I tell people now, I go, it doesn't matter if it's with a shovel or on the keyboard. Hard work is hard work, right? You got to put in the time and you got to do it. So again, I was not receptive to any kind of help the first 20 years. And I had a billionaire client trying to give me advice and I'm too thick to listen. Okay. So that's one of my favorite things of advice, like find people like Justin here to help you, right? I coach now. We help people, right? We time compress. You take 10 years of bad mistakes, costly mistakes, right? Maybe even business failure, and put it into that time frame, learning and doing the difficult stuff. I'm just going to have to use that all the time now. The difficult over the hard. Dude, I love that. I love when I get that kind of nugget. That's a good one. But it's so true. Redirect the hard work. And that's really what we're trying to do with our clients. No. Let me take them blinders off for a few minutes. Let me show you another place you can focus on that's going to get you further and faster.
Richard, you made an important comment there, and that is coaching. Whenever I hired my coach, I wanted somebody who had been down that journey before me. I wanted somebody who maybe they personally could have gone on that journey, or they have coached many, many, many people down the journey. I often say, people ask about who do I hire as a coach? I'm like, look, if you can't find somebody who's actually walked the exact path that you want to go down, then find somebody who has coached people down that path. For example, you don't have to have a heart attack to be a good cardiologist. Okay. You can be a good doctor, be a good cardiologist without experiencing a heart attack. So you can find somebody who has walked down that path, or somebody who has coached people down that path. So in my life right now, here I am in my mid 40s. I'm relaunching my consulting business to help small business owners, specifically those in the financial world, move their business rapidly. Right. So as I'm talking with these individuals now, I'm like, look, I've been there. And now in my own practice, I have 5 coaches today who in my own practice who are helping me. They're very specific coaches who are helping in very unique areas that I'm just very weak and anemic in. But they have helped hundreds of people master this because, Richard, I think you're right on the money. Coaching, whenever we hire somebody who has been there or has coached others through that path, when we hire somebody, all we're doing is we're trading our money for time. Because one thing is valuable, and that's time. It's more important, more valuable than money. We all would agree with that. So if we're trading our money for our time, we're going to compress our success rate. That's how somebody like a Born on Dirt Road, who's just dumb enough to listen to the coach and have a little bit of faith that, hey, what they're doing is going to work, and not question everything. As you said, bullheaded. I spent the first 20 years of my life being bullheaded, hard-headed. Once I got to the point of beating my head up against the wall saying there's got to be a better way than getting bloody every day, and I started listening to my coach who had done that, man, it exponentially changed. And if you hire a coach, let me take a step further. The things that they tell you to do that doesn't sit right with you, or the things they tell you to do that you're like, I just don't know about that. That's the very thing you should do, because you can't read the label when you're in the jar. You can't see what you're hurting yourself with. And so my success in my own life came from working with people like yourself, Richard, who were able to look at me and say, Goodbread, you're intelligent. You know how to do this, but you're too smart. Stop. If you go down this road, you're not going to get the results that you desire. Change. And so I think you're right on the money, Richard, that coaching for as a business owner, for someone like myself, someone like you, even the audience, it is vital. It is, you can do all the academic, but until you have that person like my dad, or like you were to your children, who's down there driving you forward, knowing your aspirations, you're not going to achieve them.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's just, I look back like, wait a minute, I trained people in athletics. I did all this stuff. I was always a trainer. Some way I was doing my business. I was training my own guys. But you don't go, well, where's my trainer? You just think, well, I'm great at this and this. I'm helping. I'm training the whole team. I'm doing, but you don't look at yourself. So yeah, again, and that's one of the patterns I realized as I work with all these different businesses was that blinder, too laser focused, right? Just too laser focused on that one thing, and it's just they're all on the same hamster wheel. They work really hard the first 2 years. They're doing everything, but then 10 years goes by, they've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. And they can't understand what's going on because they're just running on that. They may have a golden hamster wheel, okay, because they're making some more money and stuff, but they can't ever get off because then it all dries up.
And then what happens in that cycle that you're talking about is we get bored because we're not challenged anymore. Right. And then we start, something falls apart. It may not be our business, maybe our family life. It may be our spiritual life. It may be our health. Something falls apart because we're not driven with the gifts that God designed us with. We're not, as business owners, pursuing our very best. And that's what we are as business owners. We're constantly seeking excellence. If we weren't, we wouldn't be in business. Right. And so whenever I experienced this in my own life, I said, okay, there's got to be a value in my company. Okay, what could it be worth if I just made some things? My delta was a couple $1 million. I was like, crap, how do I close that to a couple $1 million? So then if I understand there's 8 key areas of business and there's 8 value drivers, and I got to work those things together. Now I've got a coach coming alongside of me and saying, hey, Goodbread, here's all you're going to focus on for the next 90 days. And here's who is specifically going to do what by when in this next 90 days. And I wanted to say, that's it? You want me to do just that in the next 90 days? Yes, just that. And my mind goes back to Mr. Miyagi as a kid of the 80s, watching Daniel's son wax on, wax off. And what's happening with that coach is that I was waxing on saying, this is stupid. Well, you only want me to do this? And it was creating that muscle memory to create me for the next project and the next project and the next project. And then literally from a startup on December 17, 2017 to signing a document 49 months later for an 8-figure exit in the most heavy written compliance system out there, all by doing simple processes, simple coaching, a coach telling me, Goodbread, you're on your way again, a weekly coach holding me accountable to that mission. Once I gather that, Richard, like I said earlier, it's just a secret formula that I was a just dumb country boy, came across and was dumb enough and gullible enough to trust my coach, get my bullheaded self out of the way. And my coach, as you can imagine, my type personality, probably your type personality, they had to be strong. They had to be able to talk frank to me. They had to be, I had to be respectful enough that I respected them and I trusted their advice, but they changed my life. But I say this way, they unlocked the potential that God had put in me. And they had positioned it to where that potential could be released in a very short period of time. And it financially changed my family's generation, or well, for generations, all because of that simple approach and having that person who would speak into my life on a daily, if not weekly basis.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's exactly, and I do this now too, is 30, 60, 90-day goals.
Yep.
That's all we do.
Yep.
I just was on another podcast where it's like, you can do the 5-year plan, but that's going to be totally different. You can't, that's too far these days. 30, 60, 90. If you can focus on those, set the goals, who to talk to, how to do it right, you lay that out, and you can't believe how fast it moves. But like, I love your point about that's all I get to do, because you can actually do focused work then. You can do deep work and it'll change your life, because all of a sudden you'll realize the power that really is in you when you're not looking in 17 different directions and you're just focused.
Well, but the long-term goals are valuable. Now, here's what this is a secret nugget for creating value. So this, what I'm fixing to tell you, friends, added another 7 figures to my final price. Whenever I launched my company, my coach had me do a 5-year pro forma. Now, whenever I see a pro forma today from a client, I've yet to see a pro forma that goes down anywhere. It's always trending up. The gross profit's trending up. The revenue's trending up. The cost of goods are always trending down. The sales, my net expenses are always trending down. And my margin's always going up. And he stopped me and he said, we got to think about when we're strategically going to hire people. We're going to strategically invest in things. When are we going to move locations? And he's had me stop and think about metrics in the early days. And so, Richard, I had to build a pro forma. It took me about 90 days to build this pro forma. But what he was teaching me was to think into the future. How big do you want to be? What is your goal that you're shooting for? And let's backwards engineer and let's think about timings if everything works out right. As you said, it's a waste of time. It's a futile exercise in the fact when you look at it 5 years, it's not going to be what you thought it was. But it's an exercise to make you think about what could happen. Now, here's what happened in my own life is my coach was he knew my business and my personality well enough that 5 years or that 49 months later, whenever we went to the due diligence phase, which is the buyer trying to look at all the data points, I bring out this pro forma and I said, here's where my business is headed. And they looked at the data points. They said, there's no way we're going to put an earn-out in place. In other words, we don't think you can do what you say you're going to do. We'll pay you this much money, but only if you perform. That's called an earn-out in technical terms. I said, no, I disagree. I'm not going to accept an earn-out. I'm going to accept a cash offer and a little bit of stock. And here's what's going to happen. And they said, well, how confident are you? I pulled my pro forma out from 48 months earlier and said, here's what I did 48 months now. And my NOI is only 30,000 above what I projected 48 months ago. Year by year, it was almost on the money, right? So by doing that, I was able to say, no, I demand a higher value, which would get up another 7 figures in my pocket, and I'm not going to do an earn-out. So there are little tricks that you can do along the way with the coach who knows how to build value, knows how to build a company that an investor wants to buy, that, yes, we have to do the 60, 90-day periods. I like the 90-day sprint. There's time for 30-day sprints. I agree with you. But at the same token, we have to do things today that are planting seeds for 3, 4, 5 years from now, whenever the time comes where you need to capitalize on that particular position. So the coach's mindset, it's almost like playing a dynamic chess game, right? You can see mate in 17 if you're a grandmaster, whereas most people are seeing mate in 3 or mate in 4. So grandmaster is setting you up the whole time. That's the power of a coach who's been there, done that, or walked other people through that journey, because they want to see you build maximum value and build a company that's transferable.
Yeah, that's what when we talk about exit strategy from the beginning, right? That's a reverse engineer. How much and when? It's real simple. It's 10 years out. I want to be done. I want this much. Okay, then you reverse engineer. What does that take? Like you're saying, you start to understand, when to bring the first person out, second person, where you're going to go, how you're going to take active business income, create passive income to replace your active business salary, right? Everything else. All that's the same thing, right? It's exactly what you're talking about. So we do that too, along with strategic vision. what's the actual vision for the company. We wrap that on top, make that a foundational thing. And it's pretty amazing. Just like you're saying, you need all that, right? Because I think another great thing you've been saying the whole time is people have to understand the value building. Like that needs to be the focus because the profits come. No one has built the value without the profits, without as a byproduct. Well, I'll call it a byproduct. I know it's not, but I'm just saying that focus on value, because that's what I do with my clients. That focus on value is what makes something desirable. Okay.
But
People
without
can
that
come in
focus,
because they can, yeah.
without that focus, it's like owning a rental property you're collecting the check off of, but you can never sell the property. I mean, who wants that? So the value focus is making sure the business is attractive. So in real estate, let's use that as an adage. I was raised in the 80s and real estate was booming at a certain point in the 80s. And even here in 2024, I still hear people say location, 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 right? Location, location. I was actually heard the other day that Michael Jordan's property is worth some 50-something million, however much he paid for it. The location now is horrible and he's down $30 million and can't sell it. Location, location, location. As a business owner, it's not about location. It's about timing, timing, timing. What you're trying to do is you're trying to build a business that is attractive to an outside buyer because you don't know, and I don't know, when the timing is going to be right. It may be like in my case where my wife's laid up in the hospital during COVID. We don't think she's going to live. And she looks at me and she says, Justin, what's another million? That's not a chest bump. That's not who I am. But she says, Justin, what's another million going to do for us? It's not going to change our life any. And I'm like, holy crap. And then she asked, one of my friends asked, my coach actually asked me this. He said, if you had unlimited time and unlimited resources, what would you do tomorrow that you're not doing today? And I'm like, dude, I would go hunting and fishing with my kids. I would spend more time traveling with my wife. I would spend more time investing in my friendships with friends. I never said business. And he said, hey, your timing is now such where your business, because of the market that you're in, your business is about 3 times as much as it will be as it was 2 years ago and probably would be worth in 3 years. Why don't you sell now as if that stock, if you will, if you look at your business as a piece of real estate or a piece of stock, if all of a sudden water bottle stock tripled in value in a day, you may want to take some chips off the table. And so if we're looking at our business saying, let's build value, 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 because we don't know whenever some anomaly is going to happen in the marketplace that your business is now triple in value within a week or 2 months or a year because of something that happened outside of your control. Whereas if you never spend the time focused on value, life's still going to happen. Circumstances are still going to come. Health is still going to be there. Maybe desires change. Age, Father Time's still going to get us. So if we look at our business and we're building this valuable asset that's attractive to an outside buyer, doesn't mean we have to sell it. Doesn't mean that. It means that now we have a valuable asset that can operate without us, that builds truly the golden goose. That whenever it comes time and you feel like because of timing, it makes sense to transact, to give it to your children, to give it to a charity, to sell it outright, to close it down, whatever it may be, you're now in a position of the driver's seat, that true control. That is ultimate control. And yet we think, as a figment of our imagination, that us in the daily grind is the control factor. It's not. You really not control this boat. The true control factor is building value in a business that's attractive to others. That way you have the power to say, no, I'm not willing to sell this because you know you don't have to. That is control.
That's right. I have a friend with his manufacturing business and amazing, just killing it, right? But he's been offered, I think, 3 different times, like from multi-billion-dollar companies. They want him to, they want to buy, but they want him to go open others. And you know what he says? No, I really like going home at the end of the day. I like my family. I want to be there. So he just turns them down. But he's killing it. He's doing all this stuff. We worked together for a while. And it's great to see he has options. He has a highly valuable thing. And right now, where he's at, he's like, I'm not selling. I don't want to go do that. But he's a brilliant guy. But to your point, he's a guy who's built his company on value. Unique. He's just, I love it. I love to see it. And that's why I encourage all the people I work with, same principle, right? Just like you're saying, because 0809 came from me. I just thought I'd make more money. And guess who didn't get to make more money? Was me. Okay. Because that's how I was operating. It's replenishable. I'll just make more. And I wasn't building something that would weather that downturn, or be attractive. I couldn't sell it. It'd be shut down. I'd walk away with zero. So now my mission, don't be me. I tell my kids, don't do what I did that first 20. Do what I do now. You don't want to don't be that guy. I'm a completely different person now than I was then, praise God, because holy cow. You know what I mean? So it's such a good thing to hear. I love hearing it from you, and not because it validates what I thought, you know what I mean? But it does. And I like it. So it's always good to talk to someone else who's kind of doing it at an even higher level. It's just awesome because I think people need to hear this because I don't think people have this viewpoint. I don't know why it's abnormal. Maybe you've had more experience with this and I keep trying. So all I know is my mission is to make them think this way. I don't care why they don't think this way. I can't consume myself with that. I have to because I'd have to change everything for them to think this way. But if you can take them from where they're at to where they need to go, that's about the best we can do.
Yeah, I remember the story in South Georgia where I grew up in the islands. There was a drawbridge back in the day and you maybe have seen the drawbridge. I know many listeners may have seen these things where the bridge would move up and a ship could go underneath it. And whenever that would happen, in the old days, they would have little red lights that would come down and stop a car theoretically from going off. One day, those red lights didn't go off, and there was a gentleman that was running through the fog, waving lights, warning, but yet the cars weren't listening to him, and they would drive off the bridge down into the river below, and obviously, whatever happened from there. Where I view it at this phase of life is that statistically, most business owners are driving off that bridge. They're making income. They are making good income. They're living in this instant gratification world today where we're making revenue. I mean, social media is eat up with, I made $10 million. I'm like, no, you didn't. You had top line revenue, $10 million. You spent $955,000 on ads, which means you only had gross profit of $500,000. So I hear this ignorance in the marketplace and these quick get rich quick schemes out there, especially in social media, and the business owners become jaded to that. And we know this, it's too good to be true. It's not true. The reality is that when you take a step back, there's a few out there who's like, dude, you just said yourself, Richard, I spent 20 years, Justin, doing this stuff, being your word bullheaded. I would say I'm dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
too.
out there getting the sores and the scars and the things on my physical body as I'm fighting this battle. And it wasn't until that West Virginia experience. I'm like, I don't want to be that 50-something-year-old out there saying I'm broke. I've had income. I've lived a prestigious life. The people in the community know me. I've given to my charities. My children are successful. I've done everything, but I'm broke. And then to see the statistics that only 4% of business owners are happy after they exit, that's of the 20 to 30% that actually exit. And I'm going, I don't want to do that. There's got to be a different way. And so after 20 some odd years of watching this journey, looking back, and I wasn't poor. My wife and I were successful. We were like most business owners out there. We had high incomes and we had a good net worth and we were in the community and we had it, but we didn't have the true standard. And the standard was freedom. The standard was freedom of my time, freedom to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do the calling that God has created me for. That was for me. And as I talk with business owners, literally by the thousands every year, they want freedom. They remember what it was like in the early days saying, I'm going to go start a business and I'll have more money and more time off. And they find themselves working 60, 80 hours a week right now. They have some income, but they can't spend it. Or they have the income, but it gets eroded in taxes. So whenever I step back, I now feel like I'm that metaphor, that old story where the man's running down the bridge in that fog saying, stop, you don't have to do this. There's a better way. There's a scripture that says there's a path that's wide that many travel, and there's a path that's narrow that few travel. And there's a path that's very narrow that few travel in this world of business. And if you travel in that narrow path, friend, there is a reward. There's a reward that creates freedom. There's a reward that creates momentum. There's a reward that can change your life for the rest of your life if you're brave enough to do the difficult work. If you're brave enough to spend some money that you think might be wasted. I remember when I hired my coach, it was $10,000 a month, Richard. $10,000 a month. It was a heavy, expensive coach. And I can remember saying, I'm only paying myself $60,000 a year, and I got a family of 5, and my wife homeschools our kids. And how am I going to feed my family? You want me to pay you $120,000? He said, oh yeah, on top of that, you're going to put $60,000 back for marketing. Now I'm like, I got $180,000 going out, and I didn't even start paying myself yet. And he said, do you trust me? Let's go. There's a narrow path, friends, as a business owner that Richard's sitting here screaming, saying, there's a better way. You don't have to spend 20 years. You don't have to be that statistic. You don't have to be that man on the mountaintop who has that epiphany in his late 50s when his body's already wrecked down and he's stressed beyond measure saying, I'm broke. You don't have to do that. But that narrow path that you have to take, it's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's going to require you to do the difficult work. But if you do it, and you know this as a business owner, the best rewards comes from the hardest things.
That's right.
It does. So just buck up. As my days say, son, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, man up. Let's go put our eyes on that vision that you were talking about earlier. Let's get crystal clear on that. And then let's just push through. Let's charge hell with a water pistol is what I say. Let's just go, man.
Yeah, it's do hard things. I talk about that all the time. I always want to be challenging yourself. And I'm like, well, I'm doing all that. I ask people like, well, what hard things have you done? As part of the experience, as part of who you become. But you're a business owner. You just described some of the hardest things you'll ever do, but look at the fruit. I'm not just going to have bigger biceps. I'm not going to have a stronger core. I'm going to have financial legacy. Okay, I'm going to have financial legacy in a short period of time because I dedicated myself to a very difficult thing, right? Do the difficult stuff in that business is so powerful. And if people can get a hold of this and just take that minute, that day to look at their business, go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. All that stuff that's not difficult. I'm doing only hard things and not the difficult stuff in the business, and make that turnaround. I think that's what's so critical. And it's cool when people get it. When I've changed people's lives and I'm coaching these people and their wives call me and say, listen, we just spent 2 weeks on the beach with all 5 kids and like he was never on the phone. This in 8 years of this, never thought this was going to happen. I'm like, that's like my greatest reward. Because you like saved a family. You like say, because you know where all that goes. You stay on that path or you don't get that. It's so hard.
Reality is it's the difficult work, but the reward is monumental. I'm just speaking from personal experience. That 4 years of my life, I worked less than I did the previous 20 because I knew exactly what the battle was. I knew the war plan. I knew the cry. I knew everything of that. I knew how to make it happen because my coach was directing me and I was able to question, but he pushed me in that direction. But then the reward, Richard, I've now exited almost 3 years ago. I'm 45 years old today. It's something very unique, being an entrepreneur mind with now 30 years of business experience at the youth of currently 45 with resources. So 45 years old resources, what that does is, friends, we spend a month every year with my children offshore fishing in Florida. No cell phones, no stress. We're making memories. My children, I just came back from a week and a half hunting with my sons in the West Virginia mountain. My middle son, his 16th birthday was us 2.5 weeks in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. My wife and I are going off for 2 weeks in December. On top of that, I don't work Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. I don't focus on anything at work. It's things that I love to do. I now have time to go work out with my wife 2-3 times a week. That's some memories. So not only do we have, yes, resources, but now the things that I've always asked, Richard, when I talk to business owners, and you've done this with this vision casting, is what's truly important. And they'll say, man, my family's important. Really? Let me look at your calendar. It's not important, because if it was, you make time for them.
That's right.
Let's put our money where our mouth is. And so whenever we made this decision, my wife on deathbed, she's healthy today. Thank God, she's healthy today. But on that moment, we said, you know what? Life is too short. Life is too fragile. This thing of life of trying to make another dollar, getting all we can, canning all we get, sitting all we can, as my dad used to say, that's ludicrous. It's about creating memories with the people and the friends and the family and the faith that we love. It's about impacting the world with our mission, the only God-given mission that he's given each of us to do. It's about, whether that be in a business. I'm still a business guy. I love business, right? But now I have the opportunity to invest, yes, in business, but in my family, in my charities, in my fitness, in my faith, and the whole roundedness of wealth. Wealth being all those things, your health, everything there. So being able to take some time and do that is a different game. And what's even more interesting, Richard, is this year, here we are recording this about 11 months into this year, 2024, is my net worth has actually increased more this year than it did the previous years. All because of knowing the game and having now full embodiment of what I'm focused on at this point of the game. So yes, take a step back as a business owner. What do you truly desire? Truly desire. Richard's talking about vision. What is your vision? Can you get crystal clear with it? And if you can, then work along somebody who understands that a business is a wealth generational tool that, as I mentioned earlier, can change your life within a very short period of time, like a strike of lightning. If you utilize your time properly and you align your time efficiently with that vision, then within a period of 3, 4, 5 years, efficiently change your family's legacy. And that freedom that you desire when you launch your business, that legacy that you desire whenever you launch that business, that time, that wealth, whatever your desire was, is 60 months away with the right coach and the right plan. 60 months. The question is, are you willing to do the difficult work to reach it? And that is the soul-searching question. We say we do, but we truly don't many times. So I'm hoping I'm waving the flag, Richard, for your audience today, waving it as I'm running down the bridge saying, hey, the bridge is out, the bridge is out. I hope you hear me, friends, as a business owner, 30-year veteran, accolades out the wazoo. Just look, there's a way that you can have everything you desire through that business if you just align it properly to your vision within your values and align it properly to what your outcome is with a good coach.
So that says it all. I think this has been just amazing. I think everything, Justin, you said, again, we're very aligned in this way, which is awesome. Again, it's always good to be with kindred spirits in this kind of stuff. But more so for the listeners, just this load with takeaways. It's been amazing, but do the difficult part, not the hard part, do the difficult part. Okay. Like 60 months is nothing. Okay. Now, if you're 20, it may feel like it's a long time. If you're our age, okay, and I'm older than you, Justin, and like it goes super fast. It's actually a mathematical thing, but it's like crazy. My oldest is in the Marine Corps now for a year. He's been for a year. I'm like, holy cow, my other son just last week, one day he goes, well, I'm moving out. I go, when? He goes, well, tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay then. Should be before, but it's that thing like they're ready to go, right? He's 19 and like he's moving out tomorrow and it's all good. And then my other two kids I'm like, wow, you're like all adults. We had 6 in less than 4 years. So it happens fast, but all of a sudden it's like, wow. But I'm thinking, okay, all the time I invested, same thing. 20 years went really fast. Okay, for these kids. And they were near the end, right, of the first 20 years. And now they've seen the next 20 basically. And they've seen that whole transition. I got to spend all that time with them. That's why when I had that epiphany that I'm going to ruin their lives if I stay on this business trajectory I was on, that's when I quit that day. That epiphany changed my life. And I look at my kids now and go, this was the grace of God giving me that window. He gave me a window to see 20 years ahead and go, if you kept doing what you were doing and you don't change, you're going to destroy their lives because they're going to have failed marriages. They're going to have broken relationships. All they're going to think is business is number one. And who are my daughters going to marry? That guy, the guy I was. What are my boys going to do? They're going to be me then. Okay. Like I am not doing that. And now I see the fruit of that 20 years later. I'm like, I love it. It's like, that was a great decision.
A question for you, Richard. Whenever you were in that position, did you feel like you were in bondage? In other words, not knowing a way how to get out of the company, or did you see a way out of that particular position you were in at that point?
No, I didn't see any way. All I knew was it was over. I knew two things, Justin. So I'm like, well, this isn't going to continue. That epiphany sped the process. I knew it was going off the cliff, right? I mean, I lost $500,000 in one day, and then it just kept going from there. But what I did was, another part of that epiphany was my entire identity was my business. And that I realized, like, I have video of me burning all my uniforms. And that's why I wouldn't go back. I haven't done a water feature since, haven't done a sculpture since, because it owned me. And I realized my identity cannot be in what I do. And I think that's a good takeaway with all this stuff we're talking about, because if your identity gets wrapped up in your business, that's why you can't let go.
I remember my coach, and I remember my coach asking me this, because I said, and I called his name. He said, I think you should sell your company. And I was like, but the company's on a trajectory. I mean, look at the margins, look at where it's moving. He said, yeah, but you're here today and your company's 3 times what you thought it was worth, and it's 3 times where you should have been. So I think it's time to sell. And I said, but I'm going to be viewed as a failure. I remember these words, Richard. I said, I'm going to be viewed as a failure. He said, explain. I said, well, here I am. I've got 2 books. I write and talk about how to build valuable companies. I got a book called The Ultimate Sale, and a book called Your Baby's Ugly. My book, Your Baby's Ugly, is #1 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. I remember seeing Glenn Beck's name and my name above it, right? I'm like, good, man, this old country boy from South Georgia, lives in Tennessee, can outpace Glenn Beck. Yes. I remember thinking it was a big deal to me, right? And I said, but I teach at the Exit Planning Institute. I teach business coaches and financial advisors and attorneys and CPAs how to scale companies so they're valuable. I teach this. And here I am giving up on my dream. He said, really? You're that shallow? I mean, his exact words. He goes, you're that shallow that you think a bunch of people who you don't even know care that much about you? You're that shallow? He goes, the reality is, Justin, you said your family is your most important thing. Show me your calendar. They're not. You're lying to yourself. You said your faith is the most important thing. You're lying to yourself. You said your health is the most important thing. You're lying to yourself. You said these 5 things were important to you and your business was number 6. You're lying to yourself. So let's take it back. Let's get honest with ourselves. And what do you truly want? And I can remember at that point going, okay, well, I got to put my pride aside because I was the business. I was that young rock star in the financial world, in the exit planning world, teaching various things. And like, okay, let's put my money where my mouth is. And he began coaching me, my pride, I'm being candid, my pride and my ego and everything that we had done together, he and I. He'd been coaching that to say, hey, look, you're missing the point. This is not it. This business is just a generational, it's just a way to generate revenue. It's just a way to generate wealth for yourself, for your charity, for your charities, for your children, for your employees, for your community. That's all it is. And whenever you're gone, no one's going to care about the business. But take that business and let's move you in a direction. Rich, I remember that same epiphany, as you said earlier, and it was hard, man. That was a hard point to ponder, but man, I'm so grateful I did. So grateful I did. My family has been forever changed because of that hard decision where I was going to do the difficult work.
Yeah, it's so awesome, man. I want people to understand this last thing, like really understand where priorities are. Business is important. It's an income generator, but it's not what matters. No one's going to rave about the business you built. Even though I never saw my dad, never was around. It's the old cats in the cradle thing, right? It's that whole thing. Like, I don't want that, right? Like, no one's going to care about that. Like, use it like you said, Justin. Build that financial legacy. Do that stuff in a short period of time. Go on to the next thing. But man, buy your time. Buy your time to do the things, the 5 F's, right? Faith, family, finances, fitness, and friendships. That's the 5 F's. Do that. Focus on that. Get the business that can help you do that, because those things are what truly matter. That's what people will remember, and that's what we'll be remembered for, right? All of that stuff. So, God, man, this has been awesome, Justin. Just awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this time. This has been.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Fantastic. How can people get in touch with you, follow you, whatever they got to do? Talk a little bit about you. How can people do that?
Yeah, so you can find Goodbread anywhere. The last name's easy to remember. You can find me on YouTube. We have our own podcast. I think we're up to almost 600 episodes where I teach business owners exactly what we're talking about. You go to justingoodbread.com. It has links to all the books, all of our social media. I would challenge you that if you're a business owner, you don't have time for a coach right now, you feel like you can't afford it for whatever reason, we have an academy, a Value Growth Academy, that literally is 5 days free of charge. Hop in there, kick the tires, look at all the course material. The information there will change your life. And then I hop on once a month, I should say, and I answer the number one question from the community. So, for example, tomorrow I'm giving a conversation around how to hire best-in-class employees in this difficult employee market right now. But to walk you through my exact process and give you the templates. If you decide you like the academy, it's $97 a month. You can come in there, you get a lot of material, you can get some questions answered. If you feel like you need a coach, but you can't afford a high priced coach like myself, or perhaps Richard right now, but you need some direction. But I'm going to tell you, if you need a coach, Richard is amazing, friends. Reach out to him. He and his company, they can help you and they can set you in the right direction.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate the props. But you too, man, this has been absolutely fantastic, everybody. We'll be back on again next time for another great guest. I don't know, it's going to be hard topping Justin. Maybe I just stopped doing the podcast. We've done you better, we're done now. We can't do any better. But this has been just super pleased, man, and honored to have you on here, Justin. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.